Well, good morning, everybody. That's the 8th of July 2019 now. I'm going to be discussing two subjects which some people might think they're unrelated, but in reality I think there is a link in the sense that I wanted to cover it because of some recent messages I've had from a Facebook friend of our son. Had a to and fro with me about this, and he made a video actually on the flat earth, would you believe. Now I find it almost embarrassing and just crazy that we're even talking about it, but I need to outline some of this because I think there may be a connection here with fundamentalist Christians, and I hope there's not too many that fit this category, believe that the earth is flat. Well, we know by satellites and space, photos of the earth and all the rest of it, that we know from all the evidence that the earth is round. I mean, you can buy a round the world airline ticket and literally fly around. If you flew an aircraft around the earth, left Sydney in the east, heading towards the United States, you'd fly around over Africa and come back into Perth in Western Australia, and come back to Sydney from the west. Now, I don't even have to argue this, let's say. We know this to be so. But there are some fundamentalist Christians out there, and as I said, I hope not too many, who misinterpret the Bible. The Bible never says that the earth is flat. It does say that there is an angel, I'm sorry I didn't quote the actual Bible, the chapter and verse on this, but there's an angel standing on each corner, in other words. And all that means is, like we say this today, they came from the four corners of the earth. Well, we don't mean that literally as four corners on a flat slab. And we mean it from north, east, south and west. I explained this to the person, and his name's Anton Perry, that you get a telescope out and you can see the moon is round, the sun is round, and Mars and Venus and all the other planets. They're all globe shape and etc. So I've been through all that now. I don't think I have to go over this and convince many of you at all who might be viewing this that the world is round, guys, but there are some people out there that believe it's flat. Now, the other subject, and been on about this for many years because I had experience as a 15-year-old was seeing a silver disc in the flying over me and over. Well, my sister was there and other witnesses a few miles away. There was this disc flew around and then flew over the farm 12 miles away and so on, and fully investigated, and NASA, would you believe, lost the negatives. But we had a couple of it was an old Instamatic camera, a couple of black and white prints clearly showing this disc and so on. That this led to my great interest in the subject and getting on to things like aliens and so on. And there's been a huge amount of huge number of credible incidents, abductions, sightings of these various species, and books written on it, and things that have happened over thousands of years and so forth. So I won't really go into very long-winded, shall we say, accounts of that. But being an Australian, I'd mention one thing, and anyone could do this. Any of my friends who, whether they're interested in it, or whether they doubt it, or whether they believe in it, it doesn't matter. If you look up Westall High School, 1966, and you might even want to type in 50 years, because they did a television documentary 50 years after the event. And the people stood by what they saw, which were 2 silver discs landed behind the school. Or actually, they floated about a foot above the ground. And they took off about 10 minutes later, high speed, and then, of course, some people turned up from the Air Force remarkably quickly, confiscated the camera of one of the teachers who had taken photos of these devices, and then you're not to talk about this, and they spoke to, of course, they couldn't help themselves, we're talking teenagers, local newspaper, which still exists, the Dandenong Journal, and they went to Channel 9 and so on. All that was recorded, and of course this investigative journalist, by the way, went to Channel 9 and found the cassette tape. It was just a canister. Oh wow, you know, very exciting. We got the actual film. Opened the canister up, and the film is gone. That was amazing, isn't it? So, another mystery. Why would the film disappear from the Channel 9 archives? Anyway, there are many, many other things that we could be discussing, and I won't right now. I'm just trying to make a link here as to why there are a certain number, maybe a majority, I don't know, of fundamentalist Christians, including one of our local pastors, who believes that the universe is empty. I happen to believe that God created thousands, if not a million, planets in his universe with intelligent life on it. Now, a lot of people might poo-hoo all that, but I don't, and I think there are a lot of people out there that would accept that life could exist throughout the galaxies and throughout. You're just talking about our own galaxy even. Oh, and they go off on the wrong tangent, in my opinion, and say, well, life could have evolved, etc. Well, I happen to believe that it's created. I am a Christian. I believe that God created this life in here on Earth, and as I said, throughout the galaxies, throughout the universe. So I just like to. I've been watching something on the computer here, by the way, but I'll get back to that. But the point about this is, I want to know in a civil and polite manner from people, if I can, if anybody out there happens to view this and they want to make a comment and give the outline why they believe that the world is flat, which is highly unlikely. I don't think there's too many people out there that accept that. Or why they believe that the universe is completely empty and there's only God in heaven and the earth and there's angels and so on. And here we are. And everything else, it's impossible for there to be life anywhere else because it doesn't mention it in the Bible, which is just great, isn't it? The Bible's designed for us, by the way. It's not designed for everybody in the universe. Anyway, I'm just putting these little ideas out there, guys. I just want to raise it because it's puzzled me that here we have another fundamentalist Christian who comes out and says, and even makes a movie about it, why the world is flat. What totally contradicting all the known evidence. All of the I just sent a message to him today. I said, well, hey, what about explorers? People would explore. Would they not have gone to the edge of the world and looked out into space and said, well, why doesn't the water fall off the edge? It's kind of crazy, isn't it? That's one of the things that comes to your mind. Well, how can you even consider it? How can the water just come to an edge and just stop? And how can a round the world airline trip actually not go around the world? And as I said to him, what about this slab that you consider, the flat Earth, in an orbit around the sun? Does the slab go around the sun? And you look out and say, hang on, the moon is round. Hang on, the sun is round. Wait a minute, Mars is, so is Venus. Uh-oh, we're surrounded by heavenly bodies, let's say. We're surrounded by planets and so on, and moons that happen to be globe-shaped. Although, of course, there's a couple of odd-shaped moons around Mars, I think, and there may be a couple of other things like that. We're talking here about all sorts of other heavenly bodies, let's describe it as in space, of different shapes, but certainly not flat slabs flying around with civilizations on them. So that's just way beyond belief. Look, I'll just leave it with you guys anyway, and just get back to me and tell me what you think about all that. And well, let's have a little discussion on whether we're talking about Facebook, or we're talking here, I'm going to put this on YouTube, or whether it's even going to go on to Flickr, and let's just have a discussion about it. And I'd just like to thank you guys for viewing.